It is time to bring in our State House insiders tonight. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist. Plenty of things to talk about. First, let's begin with House member Marvin Pendarvis resigning from the House. In a letter to the House Speaker, guys, he says, because of my respect for this body and for the residents of my district, I have made the difficult decision to resign, saying the district needed someone full-time to represent them, something he couldn't do right now. Of course, Pendarvis under SLED investigation. He's an attorney. He's 34 years old, out of the Low Country, accused of legal malpractice. Authorities say the claim is that he forged a client's signature to secure a settlement. All right, too late to get his name off the ballot, from my understanding. What's going to happen here, Antoine?
Well, I think the governor has some decisions to make of how that election is going to go. First, to fill the unexpired term, and then for whomever that will seek the office for 2 years. That's the term of a State House member here in South Carolina. I think we're in uncharted territory by and large, and so I think this will be a learning process for all of us. But I applaud him for having the courage to resign his seat and allow the people to decide what their representation looks like, because selfishly he could have stayed, let whatever processes he may be going out legally play out, and who knows what that may have resulted.
It's very difficult when you're under an investigation by a body like SLED. I mean, that's a hard thing to have to go through, JR. The other thing about this is we're only 47 days from the election. That many days out, we're less than 7 weeks. There's not enough time to change ballots. Early voting starts in 5 weeks. We've got all of that going on, so most likely what will end up happening is they'll set a special election that will happen sometime after the November election for that particular seat. I don't expect it to change hands or change parties at all. So the balance of power necessarily will not change in the House of Representatives off of this change.
Something else that's been making headlines for the last few days, PragerU. They're an official partner now with the state of South Carolina for the schools, with the state education department. And this comes after the education department refused to grant credit for the Advanced Placement African American History program. And today the Black Legislative Caucus sounding off on this, saying that the state education department has chosen to work with an organization that doesn't present a historically narrative accuracy, I should say, of American history. Antoine?
Part of freedom is the freedom to learn. And there are a group of people, extreme, who want to silence and suffocate and whitewash history in this country, and that's happening right before our eyes in South Carolina. It's very unfortunate because of our state's history and battles over the years and the progress we've made. And so we should be telling the whole story about our history, but most importantly, we should not be working with organizations who have this disdain view of history and who represent everything of what past South Carolina used to be. I think that's scary, but I also say that elections have consequences. And when we had the opportunity to elect a superintendent of education, knowing what our current superintendent of education represented, the people's will spoke. So now we have to figure out how we make adjustments to that.
Had lunch today with a friend of mine who's on the election and one school board. And one of the funny things that we said is, you know, there's always the other side of the story. And so often, JR, in a situation like this, and you understand this at home, you'll hear one thing, but you want to know what's happening on the rest of it. And there are different sides of the same history that took place, perspectives that you can have based upon where you come from and the things that you've experienced. And you would agree with this, Antoine, because you and I have both spoken on the air about this before, is that we can bring different perspectives and see the different things that tell a whole picture of the history that took place. And so that's, is there an accurate representation from what PragerU is offering? That's a good question. I think to call it into question is not necessarily a bad thing. And so this is a place where Superintendent of Education Ellen Weaver is going to have to make a choice and be able to say, this is the reason I chose to go with this group.
There's no reason, legitimate reason, for this group to be affiliated with the South Carolina Department of Education. And we can talk about telling the whole picture of history. I think that's important. But there is no perspectives when it comes to this country's history, because American history is rooted in black history. Black history is American history. We need to tell it. We do not need extremist, racist type organizations like those affiliated with this group having say-so on what the education system looks like in South Carolina. That's taking us full steam backwards, and it should bother everyone, regardless of party, regardless of race.
I find it very interesting, though, that PragerU is led by a Jewish man who.
I said they're affiliates.
Right.
Have you seen who's affiliated with PragerU?
There are a lot of people affiliated with a lot
Candace
of different
Owens,
groups.
Charlie Kirk. Have you Googled their history?
So what you have to do in this particular case is challenge it. Ask the questions. Ask the questions about what's being taught so that we actually have an educated public, Antoine, on both sides who can look at this and go, where's the truth?
Dave, here's where we fundamentally disagree. There is no both sides to this. Google the people affiliated with this institution or this organization, and no one in their right mind, if they're being honest, would say that South Carolina, knowing our state's history, knowing the fact that 9 people were killed in a church, because a guy wanted to start a race war, a white supremacist, and here we're going to link up the state with institutions who have people who praise and push that type notion. I think that's crazy.
I think it's ridiculous.
I think that's crazy to talk about both sides to that.
Praising that they turn around and praise that killer. That is absolutely
no, that's
uncalled
not.
for.
Now you twist my words. I did not say that. I said having people associated with the same type rhetoric. I didn't say that
They're
they
not
praise
sitting there praising, and nor are they calling for the killing of black people.
Dave, have you heard some of the language that come from Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, and those affiliated with that group? If you haven't, you're my friend. Go do the research. You don't have to take my word for it. Do the research.
So,
there is no both sides to this.
So let's talk about affiliating with different groups of people. And that's where we have, I know we're running out of time, but we got to be able to have some real discussions about this.
There is no
and
discussion.
I think we can continue on later.
I don't think there is a discussion because there's right and there's wrong. And we should not even find ourselves having this good people on both sides or this both sides argument. I think that's where we have to draw the line in the sand.
It'll be interesting because Candace Owens, being a black woman, has a perspective
No, it
as a black woman.
matter. It doesn't
matter.
It doesn't matter her skin
It's
color.
African-American history.
It doesn't matter her skin color.
All right.
We have to leave the conversation there. Guys, we appreciate it as always. We have more on both of these stories, PragerU and the resignation of Marvin Pendarvis, on our website, WLTX.com. A quick break. We're back with more in just a moment.